Donald Trump sees a lane for himself that is open in the final days, weeks before the election, days really, which is to try to make appeals to the Arab and Muslim community, um, and to the isolationist, um, end endless war, but really only redirect endless war to the southern border ilk of the Republican Party. The Republican Party that really got us into 2+ wars, $3 trillion worth of debt, massive amounts of death by Iraqis. I mean, death of Iraqis, PTSD and death of American soldiers. All of the shit that came after the war on terror, the stuff that like Donald Trump wishes in his wildest imaginations that he were the one to do that, as he said. The only problem he had with the war on terror was that we didn't take all of the oil. Remember that his administration increased drone strikes by 400%. Remember that he dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan in March of 2017. Remember all that he has done and how much he's destabilized the Middle East, moving the capital of Israel, or excuse me, the embassy, the U.S. embassy in Israel to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. Has a settlement named after him in the West Bank, on and on and on and on. And yet, because Democrats, because the Kamala Harris team, and because Joe Biden are so hell-bent on doubling down with Bibi Netanyahu, even though Bibi Netanyahu isn't doubling down with them, you get things like this from Donald Trump openly talking, basically kind of echoing a critique that a lot of us on the progressive left have as well.
But Liz Cheney's a total loser, but her father brought years of war and death to the Middle East. He killed many Arabs, many Arabs and Muslims. And now Lion Kamala has embraced Liz Cheney. She embraced her. And why would a Muslim or why would an Arab want to vote for somebody that has Liz Cheney as her hero?
It's a good question. It's a good question. Also, why the hell would they want to vote for you? And as we know, there is like one group, non-representative of all Muslims and Arabs in Michigan, that have endorsed Donald Trump. You know, you see the comments on those videos, and a lot of Arab and Muslim Americans are like, someone get their uncle. Like, who is this? You don't represent me. But there's Donald Trump clearly saying, I don't know if I would prize my my political campaign on the likes of Liz Cheney, who, let's keep it 100, is a loser and is the daughter of the Machiavelli behind the war on terror that, yeah, has massive amounts of Middle Eastern, Arab, Muslim blood, East Asian blood on his hands, Central Asian blood on his hands. Like, that's so clear. But again, you hear that bad faith line, and it's so sick to me, even though, and we didn't talk about this on the show, even though Donald Trump is saying things like this about Bibi Netanyahu and where he stands when it comes to Gaza and Israel.
Bibi called me yesterday, called me the day before. We have a very good relationship. And I have to say fortunately, they didn't listen to Biden, because if they listened to Biden, they'd right now be waiting for a bomb to drop on them. And they did their own work. They did not listen. They couldn't listen because what he was asking. In fact, just the other day, they said to him, are you okay with what they're doing? Well, I don't want them to attack the nuclear, and I don't want them to attack the oil. I said, really? That's sort of the opposite. If you go, Bibi called me yesterday, called me the day before.
First of all, it's like, can you just finish that thought? I don't want them to attack the nuclear, and I don't want them to attack the oil. I think he's saying what Bibi told him, but he's like, oh yeah, no, Bibi and I are back channeling and basically openly telling each other, oh, I'm so glad you're not listening to Biden. Oh, I would never listen to Biden. Ceasefire, lol. Free the hostages. Who? There are still hostages? Like, they're openly saying, and he's bragging about the fact that they are defying Joe Biden. So why, Kamala Harris? And look, Maybe her internal polling says that she doesn't need the Arab or Muslim vote to win. I don't know. But it is dangerous considering what thin margins we're looking at in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and the rest in Arizona. I did want to turn y'all on to, if you haven't voted and you're listening to my voice and you are in a swing state, but you want to basically levy a protest vote against Kamala Harris over Gaza, there is something called swapyourvote.org that basically pairs you. And if you're also in a safe blue state, but you want to levy a protest vote, you can be paired with someone in a swing state and swap your vote. Effectively, what this is you say, okay, I'm in a safe blue state. I will vote for third party candidate. I wouldn't recommend Jill Stein. Claudia de la Cruz, I would probably more likely recommend. Write-in candidate, Free Palestine, whatever. I'm in a safely blue state. I can vote for this third party while matching myself with a swing state voter who is like, I don't want to vote for Kamala without making my protest known. This is a way to do that. So if you're hearing my voice and it's before the election, this is something you could do. You can sign up. I know people who've been paired with a swing state voter, and it's kind of cool. Maybe a way to sort of a little bit of an FU to the two-party system. That being said, again, the margin's incredibly, incredibly tight. And just like it is upsetting to hear, and here's my overall take. I think that Kamala Harris is doing all of this to get elected. I think that nothing she is saying can be ascribed to her future administration. I know people think that's wild. I don't think so. I think you will say whatever the hell you need to say to get elected, including doubling down on one of the worst, if not the worst, genocidal policy of the Biden administration. Because you're afraid of AIPAC money, because you're afraid of the Jewish vote or the powerful Jewish vote. A lot of Jews without a lot of power are very much against what's happening in Gaza and do consider themselves anti-Zionist. But it is annoying to hear Kamala Harris say that, yeah, with Iran, all options are on the table. Hearing Tim Walz say, yeah, Iran and their proxies, this is the big enemy. And then you hear JD Vance, again, completely bad faith. I don't buy a single thing that any candidate says truly in this moment, because they're doing what they need to do to try to find a lane to pick off voters who are somehow deluded enough to thinking that Trump will be somehow less hawkish in the Middle East than they are. Here's JD Vance.
Israel has the...
By the way, JD Vance is on the Tim Dillon podcast. Again, comedians podcasts. You are prioritizing comedians podcasts over mainstream news, i.e., I want to get more angry 18-year-olds, obviously. Angry 18-year-olds. I mean, this is a big swing on the idea that all these podcast bros audiences are old enough to vote, right? Like, to think that like the Andrew Tate audience isn't average age 16 is just a wild swing to me. But I digress. Here you go.
Israel has the right to defend itself, but America's interest is sometimes going to be distinct. Like sometimes we're going to have overlapping interests, and sometimes we're going to have distinct interests. And our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran, right?
So he's talking about Israel. Sometimes our interests will overlap. Sometimes they won't. I think our interests now are very much not going to war with Israel. With Iran. He's right. I cannot get as angry as I want to be, but he is right. God, I hate that. I hate that they're taking this lane. And this is like, anyone who's like, yeah, fuck the Democratic Party over this forever and ever and ever. I feel you in my bones. But in reality, in practicality, in strategy, I disagree with that. And I know that we are already building an anti-war movement inside and outside the Democratic Party. And again, that is in the likes of state legislators like Ruah Roman, Palestinian American, who again is voting for Kamala Harris, but also is like, if we don't win, if Kamala Harris doesn't win, all the progress that I've made in Georgia and all of like the ceasefire resolutions being passed around the country by city councils and state legislature. I mean, state legislature is a little bit harder of a lift, but that all goes away. That could be criminalized under a second Trump administration. So miss me with all of that. In fact, this is actually what I wanted to get to. So I'm just naming that frustration. But Franny sometimes doesn't always have everything ready to go. But what else is new? This is a new article out from Zateo. This is Prem Tucker, who's been on the show before. And he's telling us about something worse than Project, not worse, another project. Every time someone says project, like my alarm bells go off. Unless it's Project Runway, it's all bad. No more projects, including no more Project Runway. I think that's gone away at this point. Project Esther is also a plan hatched by the Heritage Foundation to crack down on America's pro-Palestine movement. This is according to Prem Tucker. He says, as if Project 2025, the 900-page repressive blueprint for the U.S. put together by scores of Donald Trump-tied political staffers wasn't enough, the Heritage Foundation has released another lengthy and radical document, this time targeting pro-Palestine and anti-war Americans. The 10,000-word Project Esther, a national strategy to combat anti-Semitism, targets what it calls the Hamas Support Network, made up of groups that the document claims are decidedly anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, and anti-American, and involved in furthering Hamas's cause in contravention of American values and to the detriment of American citizens and America's national interests. The network, the project says, revolves around American Muslims for Palestine, with action arms comprised of what the project falsely claims are Hamas organizations, including Jewish Voice for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine. You know what's funny about this Project Esther, they're calling it? It sounds like liberal Zionists who were yelling at me, who were like, SJP and JVP are anti-Semitic. Like, do you understand? Your language is no different than Donald Trump's language on this. Doesn't that make you question Zionism just a wee little bit? Just a smidgen, a little sprinkle of doubt. Released on October 7th, the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attacks. Okay, so this was this October 7th. The project emerged just weeks before the election, but has garnered no attention whatsoever in U.S. mainstream media. There's already been wide repression of Americans speaking out against U.S. support for Israel's genocide of Palestine. But Project Esther embodies a right-wing push to institutionalize the repression through the weaponization of government, especially one led by Trump. While the former president has previously tried to distance himself from Project 2025, this effort seems to cater directly to him. Our intent, quote, is to organize and guide all willing and able partners in coordinated effort that employs in all available resources to combat the scourge of anti-Semitism in the United States, the author writes. Our hope that this effort will represent an opportunity for public-private partnership. So like private schools working with law enforcement, or surveillance companies, Israeli surveillance companies. I mean, a lot of these tactics are already underway to surveil and monitor students. Public-private partnership, when a willing administration occupies the White House, when a willing administration shudders. So again, to my Palestine liberation homies in the struggle, it gets worse. It does get worse. This is the latest attempt to use the American Jewish community to advance the far right's repressive agenda, said JVP Director Stephanie Fox. Joseph Howley, a Columbia professor who's also been involved in organizing Jewish faculty against the war and the instrumentalization of anti-Semitism, told Zateo that the quote far-right Zionist hegemonists have wanted for years to make being an anti-Zionist or non-Zionist or Israel critic Jew illegal or Israel critic Jew illegal, excuse me. This year, they've succeeded in getting universities to make it policy. Now they want to make it federal law. Project Esther is just more of the same enthusiastic authoritarianism from the American Christian nationalist right, made all the scarier by the thousands of lives it's costing overseas and the willingness of so much of this country's Jewish institutional establishments to sign on to it. Howley added, it's disgraceful. Project Esther does equate anti-Zionism and criticism of Israel to anti-Semitism and, moreover, anti-Americanism. It casts millions of Americans opposed to Israel's violence in Palestine and the U.S. support of it as opportunistic, foreign-funded, and inauthentic. What's so gross about this is, like, Democrats have also echoed this. Like I understand, and it is true, it gets worse. So what he's saying, what will happen is they will use the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, and astonishingly, the Racketeering Influence and Corruption Organizations Act, as well as counterterrorism, hate speech, and immigration laws, in order, obviously, to go against Palestine protesters. They also seek to disrupt communications between and among the targeted groups to monitor their social networks. Now, here's the problem. Again, yes, Republicans and the right have far more plans to operationalize surveillance and crackdown and, again, using counterterrorism to go against Palestine demonstrators. But don't you think that the groundwork has also been laid, let's put it on the Dems' feet, has been laid by Democrats? It so often happens, so many of these issues that affect us, that we care about, whether it's war and surveillance, Democrats voting for the Patriot Act, right? Whether it's also the border, and Democrats continually willing to militarize the border only to have, a wannabe dictator like Donald Trump come into office and suddenly truly use these policies to his own advantage. It is nascent fascism and totalitarianism. It is not operating, but when you have an actual fascist in power, it's very easy to just turn it up a notch. It's incredibly easy to turn it up a notch. So can we stop paving the way? And again, case in point, RICO charges being brought against Atlanta organizers who are working against Cop City, being brought against them. And it's like, now a lot of those charges have been dropped, but like they were caught in a RICO case by ostensibly a Democratic DA. So you understand what I'm saying? Like, let's not act so lily white about, oh, Project Esther. Like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure that the Democrats have also helped in doing these exact same things. So, I'm of two minds on how it does get worse, and we've seen it get worse. BLM in 2020 is a good example of it, but we need to 180 course correct on the ability to even clamp down on free speech, real free speech, actual free speech, peaceful demonstrators exercising their right to say no more genocide. Any hoodle. Joe Biden is such a chump, man. He is such a chump for all this. That's all, right? I mean, could he be any more of a chump? That being said, he's fighting back a little bit. I mean, look, here's more chumptastic news for Joe Biden. Donald Trump truthing, during my administration, we had peace in the Middle East, except for the bombs I dropped, except for the people I killed. We had peace because I danced with the Saudi orb and their sword. They gave me a sword. And so I was like, sure, you can keep murdering Yemenis. We had peace in the Middle East, and we will have peace again very soon. I will fix the problems caused by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, stop the suffering and destruction in Lebanon. I want to see the Middle East return to real peace, a lasting peace, one which Israel owns all of the West Bank, and we will get it. I'm adding that. And we will get it done properly. In other words, dropping a nuke so it doesn't repeat itself every 5 or 10 years. We will wipe out all of the Palestinians. Again, I'm adding all that. I will preserve the equal partnership among all Lebanese communities. You will? You will? You're going to fix the political dynamics of Lebanon? Damn. Of all the man's claims, this one's wilder than injecting bleach into your veins will kill COVID. I will preserve the equal partnership among all Lebanese communities. Your friends and family in Lebanon deserve to live in peace, prosperity, and harmony with their neighbors. Oh, like, I know it's all bad faith, but have we seen even we've seen Kamala Harris say, I know people are hurting. I know people are hurting, but we shouldn't sacrifice lowering the price of groceries for your families who are getting murdered in Lebanon. Like this is so pathetic. This was just today. I look forward to working with the Lebanese community living in the United States of America to ensure the safety and security of the great people of Lebanon. Vote Trump for peace. Now, I know what we are all thinking. Who in their right mind would fall for any of this? But many people do, because at least he's saying it. I don't know if my community, the Chinese, Italian, Cardi B loving mothers of 2-year-olds community were being mass murdered by the IDF. And Trump said this, it might speak to me. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.